Hi, and welcome back. A few videos ago, I was asked to do a Q&A, and in celebration of 1,000 subscribers, I thought, that would be a nice way to celebrate. So I asked some of you to write down some questions that you may have in the comment section of one of my videos, and I'll be honest, I was mentally preparing myself for things that were much more personal. But you guys had some good ones. I will do my best to answer them. I saved a lot of the good ones, and I will go through them. I've saved most of them to my phone, so I'm just going to read off my phone. Let's jump right in. This first question says, "Nice video." Thank you. My question is, what books would you recommend someone read to improve their general knowledge of the world? That can go 1,000 different directions. There are a large number of books that I recommend everyone read. I think the first one is Thinking Fast and Slow. It shows us that our minds are built for shortcuts, and it helps us remember that when we have complex things we need to think about, so that we don't get caught in the shortcuts. It helps us to understand what fast thinking is, so that we might ignore it in favor of slow and more deliberate thinking. It also helps us realize that slow thinking is difficult. Real, hard thinking is difficult and exhausting. And it helps us realize that, and that when we are using our minds appropriately, we quickly become exhausted. That's probably the one book I think everyone should read. I have a few more recommendations. One is called How Not to Be Wrong: The Power of Mathematical Thinking. You're sensing a theme here, I can tell. I think I like this book mainly because it says a lot of the same things that Thinking Fast and Slow says. Another one I would have everyone read is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Teaches you a lot about money. Something we don't learn nearly enough in elementary school or high school or even college, and especially not adulthood. But it's a good book I think everyone should read. So, Thinking Fast and Slow, How Not to Be Wrong: The Power of Mathematical Thinking, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Ooh, this is a good one. What was your earliest ASMR experience? This is a kind of a longish story, I think. I wasn't paying attention to it, and I don't recall exactly how it happened. But for a number of months, I was having a very difficult time getting to sleep. And my wife suggested I use the Calm app. Just listen to something easier. I started with the guided meditations, and I liked them, but I never really got super into them. So I shifted over to the sleep stories. The first one I heard was Blue Gold. I forgot who narrates it, but I enjoy the story, and I'll say it's it was very relaxing, so I thought I'd do more exploring. I stumbled upon a guy named the French Whisperer, who had a few stories about things that I was interested in, just academically interested in, like relativity, space, time, speed of light travel, those sorts of things. And I listened to that a lot. And then I figured, you know what, there's got to be something like this elsewhere. So I looked up his channel, and then, you go down the rabbit hole. And then I listened to him. I listened to people like GB and Smidgen and Zeitgeist and a couple more that I have really enjoyed. I've recently gotten back into the guided meditations, just because it's been a tough couple of months at work. I find that those help a lot. But yeah, that's kind of my ASMR story in a nutshell, really. What inspired you to become a physician? That's another good one. I am not sure. I think it was a number of things, really. I was always good at math and science when I was a kid. I only enjoyed math and science when I was a kid. I would get passable grades in things like English. Passable enough that I didn't get yelled at, but my father knew that I didn't like it, so he didn't really care. I did like history. I always liked history. But math and science were really my jam. So that was part of it. The other part of it is I am a type 1 diabetic, so I've always been a patient. And I think that certainly has impacted what I've done. Before I got into med school, I thought I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon because when I was 19, I had pretty bad shoulder surgery, and it kind of put a stop to my hockey career. Not entirely, but close enough that I was terrified. And I thought, you know what, maybe I can have this not happen to somebody else that's in my shoes. But there's a long story behind why I didn't go into ortho that we can perhaps revisit another time. For those of you wondering, I am an internal medicine doctor, and internal medicine doctors do everything that is not issues with pregnancy, issues with children, or active surgery. Everything else is me. I think it was a good decision based on my, attention deficit. I wouldn't say disorder, but yeah, I tend to bounce around a lot. This one says, awesome, I've been waiting for a Q&A. I suppose my question is, what is the nicest thing you have ever done, or the nicest thing that somebody else has done for you? I guess the nicest thing I've ever done is, it depends on the person. You'd have to ask some individual person, I don't know. But I can certainly say that the nicest thing that someone said to me was actually quite simple and led to a couple new friendships. So I have been a fan of this particular band called Spill Canvas since I was in high school. And I've followed them pretty closely. Been to a handful of shows. Not a huge band, but I like them. I went to one of their shows out in Chicago a couple years ago. I think right before COVID happened. And I know whenever I go see a band like that, small band, not huge, I always try to support them. So, bought a couple sweatshirts and they're cool enough to hand me this Polaroid that actually sits behind me. They hand me this Polaroid with all their signatures on it, so that's pretty cool. I didn't have a place to put it, so I put it in my jacket pocket. And at the end of the show, it's not in my pocket, so it must have fallen out. I was bummed. Not the biggest deal in the world, but I was still bummed. My wife reaches out to the wife of the lead singer through Instagram. Sarah's her name. Absolute sweetheart of a person. And kind of tells the story without me knowing. And she ends up sending the Polaroid, and then with a card from her and the lead singer, Nick is his name. And, thanking me for being a fan and, wishing me a Merry Christmas. And I didn't see it until I came home after a call shift when I was in the ICU, and my wife had taped it to the mirror in the bathroom. So she was certain I would see it. And I was mortified because I was confused, because it was, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm looking at the bathroom mirror out of, one bloodshot eye. And why is there something taped to the mirror? And then I opened it and I saw it, and I saw what she'd done, and that was probably the first time that I'd felt like really, really truly loved, at some level that I hadn't felt. Somebody went out of their way that egregiously to make something like that happen, and it meant a lot to me because I liked the music so much, and now Nick, Sarah, and I are actually friends, so that was pretty cool. So that was probably the nicest thing that everybody's ever done for me. This one says, "Really love your channel. Thank you. Thank you so much for the great content. You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoy it. What is something new or interesting you've learned about yourself over the past year?" I have learned that I have a very hard time working for other people. And this has kind of been a pattern I've realized over the course of my life. I have never been the kind of person to do things as I was supposed to. I remember very distinctly my father coming home from a parent-teacher conference with my mother when I was, probably in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, something like that. And them kind of being in an argument about, my mother saying, if I would apply myself harder in school, everything would be A's across the board, A's, A pluses, whole 9 yards. No, I'll be honest, I was a pretty good student. I typically got A's, maybe a couple of B's here and there, but mostly just A's. But my father was like, listen, I want him to be schoolwork oriented enough to do very well, but I also want him to be a well-rounded person. So if he has to sacrifice 1 or 2 A's every semester, that seems like not a very stiff price to pay. And that's what I did. I played sports, a lot of them. I practiced my music all the time. I played a handful of video games, not a ton, but enough. I was always as well-rounded as I could be. And that sort of a theme traveled with me throughout all of my schooling, my college, med school, even in residency now. And I anticipate it'll continue afterwards, in that I don't do anything by the book. I kind of do my own thing. And I always get the advisor, emails like, hey, you're kind of scaring me. And at this point in my life, I just shrug it off and I laugh, because I know if I had to do exactly what you tell me to do, how you tell me to do it, I would go absolutely mad, because I can't do it like that. I gotta do my own thing. Like this, for example. I gotta do my own thing. I can't just do the one thing, and I can't do the one thing how you have it planned out for me. I'll get from A to B, but I'm going to take the scenic route. So that's something that I've come to grips with really over the past year, that my path isn't linear, as most people says. I get a little creative. Oh, this one's good. What are the most common assumptions people tend to make about you and Kyrie because you're doctors, which are not true? So Kyrie is my wife's name. So common assumptions people make about doctors, which are not true. I think the one big one is that we get paid from the pharmaceutical companies. I am the type of doctor that I want you, first and foremost, to not die. So I will give you whatever medicine I can to have you not die. But if I have to start a new medicine on a patient, I will tell that patient, listen, I'm going to start this today. Our goal is to get you off of this in a year. I usually give them a time frame. And I get paid the same amount of money if one of my patients is on 0 medications or 1,000 medications. It makes literally no difference. The laws are so stringent that it used to be that the drug reps and pharmaceutical reps and whatever rep used to be able to come to the hospital or clinic and, buy us coffee and bagels every morning and whatever. And that's not allowed to happen. And if somebody happens to sneak in and bring a bunch of food, we're supposed to just let it sit there. I remember that happened when I was doing an orthopedics rotation, when I was between my M1 and M2 year, my first and second year of med school. And the attending just said to the students, yeah, you guys go ahead. I'm not doing it. Because it affects, theoretically, how you prescribe medications or which devices you use during surgery. And we can't have that. That can go against patient care. So, no thanks. All right, got time for just the one more. I think this is a good one. Favorite places in the US or abroad that you have traveled or want to travel to. Oh, and some favorite TV shows of yours. There's a lot of questions in this particular comment, so let's play with them a little bit. My favorite place to visit so far has always been the Grand Canyon in the United States. I think it's one of the most beautiful places there is. But in the United States, I've not been to Big Sky, Montana yet. I would like to go there. Yeah, I like just sitting and looking up at the stars. That's like my ideal evening, just sitting doing nothing, just looking up. It's very simple, but that's what I like to do. Abroad, my favorite place to go is Italy. Each little corner of Italy has its own charm. One of my favorite places is Rome. I love seeing the grandeur and just the immensity that is the Vatican. And the history that's in Rome is spectacular. But I will say the smaller towns outside of Florence, up in Tuscany, are really quite beautiful. I've not yet been to the Maldives or Dubai. I think those places would be cool to visit. I've also not been to Australia or New Zealand. I would like to go there. Part of me wants to go to Antarctica, just to say I did. But I think the most excited I am for a place to go that's not in the United States is to space. I think one day that will be a thing, hopefully during my lifetime. I think it'll probably be during my lifetime. But yeah, definitely space. And favorite TV shows? Well, I think that's an easy question. One, whenever the Boston Bruins are playing, I watch that. I mean, I named my dog after the team, for God's sake. And two, The Office. Because, duh. If you're asking about a medical show, my favorite is Scrubs. I've never watched an episode of Grey's Anatomy. And maybe I will do a reaction video on my other channel to Grey's Anatomy when I figure out how to do reaction videos. As you probably know, this whole setup is a one-man show. So, yeah, maybe one day. But not today. Yeah. But thank you to all of you who wrote in with Q&As. If I am so lucky to get to 10K, I will do another one then. But for now,